Hello everyone, my name is Nicholas Hall, Administrative Intern at Bremen Park Middle School. Today I'm going to take you through a brief mini PD in which I'm going to model for you the reciprocal teaching strategy. Before we dive into this strategy, we need to take a look at the why behind the strategy. And the why behind it comes down to effect size. So what is effect size? Quite simply, effect size is a way of differentiating or quantifying two pieces of information. It differs between the average of two sample sizes. So if you have an average group of one that did something, an average group that did something else that was a little bit better, you can compare those by those two averages. Really what it comes down to, and what you need to know, what I had an administrator say to me early in my career is, the magic number is 0.4. Anything above that is more than a year's worth of growth, and you're having a positive impact on your students. So that's what you need to keep in mind when you talk about effect size. Now that we know what effect size is, we can take a look at the 0.74 effect size for reciprocal teaching with a better understanding. Reciprocal teaching is a highly effective strategy that nearly produces 2 years' worth of growth. It is a substantial strategy that people should consider when trying to teach reading comprehension in their classroom. Now, in an effort to address the skeptics, let's take a look at some of the data behind the confidence and who it really works for. Obviously, this is a really good strategy for struggling readers, ones that need a little bit of help thinking aloud and building on those reading skills. 38 studies were conducted on 677 students with 53 effects of significance. This led to a confidence rating of 2 on a 5-point scale. The reason for the lower end of the confidence rating is there's just not enough research on the information to demonstrate with a strong confidence that this is an effective strategy. But from all experiences, it does yield results. What is it and how do you use it? Reciprocal teaching is a reading comprehension strategy that can be used across curriculums. It typically has 4 roles: summarizer, clarifier, predictor, and questioner. This strategy systematically teaches students how to work collaboratively together in their reading to find answers and further their thought and discussions. Before we get into this in more detail, consider using a fishbowl model when rolling this out with students. It's an effective way of getting them to visualize what your expectations are and how to do it. Traditional reciprocal teaching strategies can be found on the Reading Rockets website. It's an excellent resource if you're looking to implement it for the first time. However, what I would like to take you through is the max teaching strategies. There are 2 different schools. There's the reading method for anything but math, basically, and simply the math method. They each have 5 steps: summarizer, clarification, questioner, connection, and visualizer. They have different roles, as you can see, in each process, but working together collaboratively, students can go through reading text or a story problem to solve it. As you work through this with students, it may be effective to give them cards to remind them on starters, similar to the list that I have here. It'll be very helpful when you're trying to get students to engage in meaningful discussions throughout the class period. So right now, I'm going to take you through an example problem, kind of modeled in a virtual format. The first role is summarizer, who's responsible for restating the problem in your own words and asking some questions for it. So here we go. Students would read the problem. The perimeter of a basketball court is 288 feet, and the length is 6 feet, less than twice the width. What are the lengths and width of the court in feet? It gives a description of how many points are possible. I'm not going to go over that with you. However, in my own words, it's asking me to find the length and width of the court, and I know it's a couple of key pieces of information. I got to find the width and the length, and I'm looking for my answer in feet. A tip for success when implementing this is that I give my students cards when they're going through this, and I give my stronger student the first card, which is a summarizer card, and allow them to kind of bring the rest of the group along and introduce them into the process. The second step in this process is the visualizer. So the visualizer's role is to draw a 10 or 15-second model to illustrate the problem. They can draw whatever they think helps them make a connection. In this case, I would have drawn a Cavs basketball court and kind of made reference to it with maybe some labels as well. If you're just starting off, this should probably also be a stronger student, because typically when I rotate, I just rotate 2 goes to 1, 3 goes to 2, so on and so forth. So that makes it a little bit easier when trying to keep up and get this off the ground. The third step is the clarification. The role of the clarification is to highlight keywords that are needed to solve the problem. So they again reread the problem again. Students highlight the key information. As you can see, I made 4 highlights here: 288 feet, 6 feet less than twice the width, length and width, and feet. This is the kind of an opportunity for students to discuss, to find important information, and maybe identify information that is not important. The fourth role is connection. This is where I may give a student that struggles a little bit more in my class this card initially, because it gives them an opportunity to witness others before they have to speak, and it's a little bit of an easier one in the group. What connections do they make? Maybe they make a connection. Oh, we learned about equations. We learned about two-step problems. We learned about preliminary in the past. Those sort of connections are all talking points that this group can start talking about. Lastly, we arrived at the fifth role, question. Uh, Periodically throughout this, students are rereading the question, but their role in questioning is to restate the question, so say it differently, and discuss how you may solve the problem. So, get this basketball court, 288 feet, 6 feet less than the width. Okay, we got to figure out what the length of the court is. So, how am I going to do this? I'm probably going to set up an equation. I think that makes the most sense, and try and solve it that way. I'm not sure. I don't think we need additional information. We might need to identify a variable. I think like W might make sense. That might be a good idea. This should stem to a discussion between students about their thought process before they move on to independently solve and then share their answers. So what I just took you through is not necessarily the traditional reading comprehension reciprocal teaching model. That can be found at Reading Rockets. However, I did utilize what I would call the Max teaching, which is that book to the right there. It's a great resource if you're interested in this. If you like the cards that I utilize with the students, you can see there I'm a 1 and 4 there. One's an elementary one, one's a high school one. Please email me at nhall@briefschools.org. Keep in mind, this is fundamentally a reading strategy. I took it through a math problem with it, but it can be used in any content area as a reading strategy. If you're curious about anywhere my research came from, here it is. Take a look. There's a lot of great information out there on reciprocal teaching. Good luck.